going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel, and today we are reviewing Ford v Ferrari. So Ford v Ferrari was directed by James Mangold, and it stars Christian Bale and Matt Damon. And it tells the true story of American car designer Carroll Shelby and driver Ken Miles, who must battle corporate interference, the laws of physics, and their own personal demons to build a revolutionary race car for Ford and challenge Ferrari at the 24 Hours of the Le Mans race in 1966. Okay, so I was like really pumped for this movie. You got Christian Bale and Matt Damon in the same movie. That's Batman and Jason Bourne in the same movie. You can't get much better than that. So, does Ford v Ferrari live up to the hype? Does it live up to the excitement? Does it fulfill what we've all wanted this thing to be? Grand question, is Ford v Ferrari a good movie? Yes. Alright, first off, the performances in this movie are like top notch. I don't want to say career best. I would need to rewatch some of these actors' previous films to really decide if these are their best performances, but I know it's up there. Seeing these two guys work together to try to challenge this big company, this big intimidating company, trying to design a car to beat them, like that was really, really good stuff. And not only that, there's some really good human drama put into these characters as well, because yes, this is a true story, and it can be hard sometimes to incorporate the people's personal lives into a film when we don't know everything about their personal lives, like their lives at home and all of that stuff. But I did some research when I got back home, and no, they actually did a really good job here. Seriously, like in the first act of this movie, they did a really good job of getting you attached and invested into these guys. We'll talk about that first act in a minute. The sequences where these guys are trying to design a car, like trying to change out the different parts and test it on the tracks, and then pulling it back in and putting in new parts, and they just keep trying, hitting it harder each time. Those were some really entertaining montages. Alright, now let's talk about those racing sequences, because when they hit, they hit. I have not seen racing sequences this thrilling in I don't even know when. The cinematography in these racing sequences just makes it so thrilling. You really feel how fast these cars are going down this pavement. Also, the camera does some wicked things, like it goes into the windows of the car, comes back out, pans around, pans downward, goes under the car, pans around again, goes forward. And another thing these sequences did really well is capture the reality of what can happen if things aren't always safe on the racetrack. There are crashes, there are fires, yes, there are explosions. And where some fictional movies about racing may strain credibility because it may seem too Hollywoodized, they just want to get some explosions and fire. Not with this movie. It all feels extremely real because it is real. This actually happened. The cinematography throughout this entire film makes it one of the best looking films of the year by far. And its emotional payoff and its emotional investment really, really grabs you. That's not to say it's flawless though. Hardly any films out there are 100% flawless. Now here's the big one. You've heard all the critics say it, you've heard everyone say it, you've heard anyone who's reviewed this movie say it. The first act really, really drags. The first act, while it is well filmed, well acted, and well written, just goes on a little bit too long. I think a good 10 minutes could have been cut off that first act runtime. Parts of it did get boring. I never got sleepy or anything though. Like when the boring parts came up, I would just analyze the filmmaking. Like yes, I would still listen to the dialogue because I need to pay attention to the story, but what made it entertaining for me was looking at the cinematography and how the director decided to shoot that shot in a certain way, because that's another thing too. This movie really makes you feel like you're in 1966. Aside from the first act, I think the end of this film, whereas the first act was a little bit slow, the end of this film is a little bit fast. See what I did there? The end of the third act could have went on just a little bit longer, because if you know the true story, there is a event that happens after the big race, and I'm not gonna spoil what it is just in case you don't know, but it is very emotionally powerful when it happens, but then it almost immediately cuts to 6 months later, and it goes back to being lighthearted and happy despite the emotional scars that were left on Carroll Shelby. I just think it was a little bit rushed, so take 10 minutes away from the beginning, add that 10 minutes to the end. Other than that though, I really don't have any problems with this movie. There are tons of just really, really sweet sequences. There's this scene with Ken Miles and his son, who are sitting on the test racing tracks at night. No one else is around, it's kind of closed down a little bit, and they're just sitting there staring at the horizon. You got city lights in the background. It was just so beautiful, so gorgeous. This is also one of the funniest movies of the year. Like, there are so many sequences in this movie where I was just laughing my butt off, particularly particularly one scene on the highway with Ken Miles and his wife. I'm not gonna elaborate on that, but just wait for that scene. It's amazing. Pure comedy gold. So in the end, Ford v Ferrari had great cinematography, great performances, great racing sequences, great production design. Like, I felt like I was in the 60s. The only problems are the first act drags just a little bit, and the third act is a little bit too rushed. But after the end of the first act, the second and third acts become so thrilling, easily the best parts of the film, the best acts in the film, and the pacing never lets you go. Ford v Ferrari was a thrilling ride that kept me hooked almost the entire time, and after seeing it in the theater last night, I feel extremely comfortable giving Ford v Ferrari a solid 9 out of 10, which brings us to an A- on the grading scale. Still a positive grade. Okay, that's still positive. I loved this movie, and I will definitely buy the Blu-ray one day. It's like I give it an A, and people are like, cool, but then I say A-. There's a minus. Minus is not a good word. Why are you putting a minus? It's still a positive grade. If I make a 94 on a test at school, that's an A-, but it's still a really good grade. So Ford v Ferrari, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments, and if you haven't seen it, what is your favorite Christian Bale performance? What is your favorite Matt Damon performance? Thanks so much for watching, guys. It really does mean a lot. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, keep writing, keep shooting, and keep editing.